So wonderful to see everyone. We will dive right in with our Mangala Charana. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Jai. So good to be with all of you. It is a special Ekadashi. We are celebrating many things. Among them, and I thought it would be really cool to combine both of them. Bhadra Purnima is coming. And Bhadra Purnima is incredibly special for worshiping Srimad Bhagavatam. The entirety of Srimad Bhagavatam. This wonderful incarnation that we have of Shri Krishna, hopefully within all of our homes, and easily accessible within all of our homes, even through the online database. So everyone has a chance to have Srimad Bhagavatam in their home and worship it. And one of the best ways to worship Srimad Bhagavatam is simply by reading it. But we are also celebrating the Advent, the birth appearance celebration of our sweet incarnation of Vamanadev. And so, because both of those wonderful dates are coming up, one, the actual appearance day of Vamanadev is tomorrow, but we fast today because you have to usually complete your Ekadashi fast on the next day at a certain time. And so we fast till noon on Ekadashi in order to honor Vamanadev. And then we feast and have a festival tomorrow. And so because the appearance of Vamana is coming and the worship of Srimad Bhagavatam is coming, I thought, what better way than to speak and read about this wonderful, miraculous incarnation from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and see what we learn from this wonderful literary incarnation. So first off, we have, starting from the 8th canto, chapter 15, we have the wonderful example of Bali Maharaj conquers the heavenly planets. Bali Maharaj is coming in a wonderful lineage. He is the grandson of a very well-known devotee who we've spoken about several times, Prahlad Maharaj. So now we've got familial connection with Bali Maharaj, our key player in this pastime. Prahlad Maharaj had a son named Virochan. That son had a son named Bali. This is the Bali Maharaj of whom we speak when we begin speaking about this wonderful pastime. In South India, there's a festival called Onam, which is coming. And it marks the day where Bali Maharaj visits the earth to say hello to any and all of his subjects. We'll get into a little bit about why he has this split residence towards the end. But this festival of Onam is also coming in celebration of this wonderful pastime and in celebration of this wonderful paradoxical devotee known as Bali Maharaj. I say paradoxical because Prahlad Maharaj was a demon by race. His entire family were demons. They were literally known as Daityas and Danavas. And so Bali Maharaj was also a demon devotee. This is not completely uncommon. We've heard of many demon devotees. We have the great and learned Vibhishan, who is a demon devotee. So we do have these instances throughout history where we have these paradoxical devotees who seem like all of the odds should be stacked against them surrendering their lives to Vishnu, and yet somehow or other they manage to surrender their lives to Lord Vishnu. So starting from chapter 15 in the 8th canto, we have Maharaj Parikshit inquiring from Shukadev Goswami. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything. Why then did he beg 3 paces of land from Bali Maharaj like a poor man? And when he got the gift for which he had begged, why did he nonetheless arrest Bali Maharaj? I'm very much anxious to know the mystery of these contradictions. So this is a pastime full of contradictions. As we spoke, this is already contradictory because Bali Maharaj was a demon in a family of demons, bent on conquering the heavenly planets. How then does he get to be not only giving away in charity all that he owns to the Supreme Lord? How does he get to be serving the Supreme Lord? How then does he get to be one of the 12 Mahajans, great souls who we should forever follow in the footsteps of? How does he get to be worshipable from here on out? Shukadev Goswami said, O king, when Bali Maharaj lost all his opulence and died in the fight, Shukracharya, a descendant of Bhrigu Muni, brought him back to life. Because of this, the great soul, Bali Maharaj, became a disciple of Shukracharya and began to serve him with great faith, offering everything he had. I always found this interesting because we see that death is not the end of things for a lot of people within Srimad Bhagavatam. In some cases, the death is kind of just the beginning of their journey. In the case of Bali Maharaj, he got into a fight with demigods and he lost. Not only did he lose, but he died. So now all of his followers have grabbed him and they've run to their guru. Oh, Shukracharya, what has happened to our leader? We think that he's already died. And Shukracharya answers, yes, you're right. He's dead. But I know the mantras and I possess the ability of bringing him back to life. I think about the great blessing and the great favor that one can get from incredibly powerful Brahminical personalities. And this just puts in perspective the great gift that we have gotten from Srila Prabhupada. All of us have gotten sort of a rebirth, kind of wandering around in this material existence. Some of us may have well and truly died. And then we are brought back to life by the kindness of a very powerful saint, a wonderful soul who comes to give compassionately this favor, this wonderful gift of a second life. Let's continue and see what Srimad Bhagavatam has to say. The Brahman descendants of Bhrigu Muni were very pleased with Bali Maharaj, who desired to conquer the kingdom of Indra. Therefore, after purifying him and properly bathing him according to regulative principles, they engaged him in performing the yajna known as Vishvajit. When ghee, clarified butter, was offered in the fire of sacrifice, there appeared from the fire a celestial chariot covered with gold and silk. There also appeared yellow horses, like the horses of Indra, and a flag marked with a lion. A gilded bow, 2 quivers of infallible arrows, and celestial armor also appeared. Bali Maharaj's grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, offered Bali a garland of flowers that would never fade, and Shukracharya gave him a conch shell. When Maharaj Bali had thus performed the special ritualistic ceremony advised by the Brahmanas and had received by their grace the equipment for fighting, he circumambulated the Brahmanas and offered them obeisances. He also saluted Prahlad Maharaj and offered obeisances to him. Then, after getting on the chariot given by Shukracharya, Bali Maharaj, decorated with a nice garland, put protective armor on his body, equipped himself with a bow, and took up a sword and a quiver of arrows. When he sat down on the seat of the chariot, his arms decorated with golden bangles, and his ears with sapphire earrings, he shone like a worshipable fire. It's so incredible, the things that can happen when we simply follow the instructions of our spiritual teachers. This is a wonderful example. Bali Maharaj is such a gorgeous example of what happens when we give ourselves over to following the instructions of our spiritual masters. There is fame that awaits the person who simply follows the order of their spiritual master. There is incredible fortune, armor, and protection. All of the things that we think that we need are available to one who simply faithfully follows the order of the spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about following the order of the spiritual master so much in several of these purports. And he speaks about how there is so much potency that is given from the spiritual master to the student. So when he assembled with his own soldiers and the demon chiefs, who were equal to him in strength, opulence, and beauty, they appeared as if they would swallow the sky and burn all directions with their vision. After thus gathering the demoniac soldiers, Bali Maharaj departed for the opulent capital of Indra. Indeed, he seemed to make the entire surface of the world tremble. King Indra's city was full of pleasing orchards and gardens, such as the Nandana garden. Because of the weight of the flowers, leaves, and fruit, the branches of the eternally existing trees were bending down. The gardens were visited by pairs of chirping birds and singing bees. The entire atmosphere was celestial. Beautiful women, protected by the demigods, sported in the gardens, which had lotus ponds full of swans, cranes, chakravakas, and ducks. Now, we might think, why are we spending so much time giving the description of Indra's heavenly planet? If we have been reading Srimad Bhagavatam up until this point, we may have seen several such descriptions. Why another? This becomes very important because soon, spoiler alert, Bali Maharaj will be given opulence exceeding this heavenly planet. He will be given another residence and another realm which has opulence the likes of which Indra's heavenly planet has even just dreamt about. So he's about to get something even greater than everything that will be described. The city was surrounded by trenches full of Ganges water, known as Akash Ganga, and by a high wall which was the color of fire. Upon this wall were parapets for fighting. The doors were made of solid gold plates, and the gates were of excellent marble. These were linked by various public roads. The entire city had been constructed by Vishvakarma, who is the architect of the Devas. The city was full of courtyards, wide roads, assembly houses, and not less than 100 million airplanes. The crossroads were made of pearl, and there were sitting places made of diamond and coral. Everlastingly beautiful and youthful women who were dressed with clean garments glittered in the city like fires with flames. They all possessed the quality of Shama. The breezes blowing in the streets of the city bore the fragrance of the flowers falling from the hair of the women of the demigods. Apsaras passed on the streets, which were covered with the white fragrant smoke of agru incense emanating from the windows with golden filigree. The city was shaded by canopies, decorated with pearls, and the domes of the palaces had flags of pearl and gold. The city always resounded with the vibrations of peacocks, pigeons, and bees, and above the city flew airplanes full of beautiful women who constantly chanted auspicious songs that were very pleasing to the ear. The city was filled with the sounds of mridangas, conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and well-tuned stringed instruments all playing in concert. There was constant dancing, and the Gandharvas sang. The combined beauty of Indrapuri defeated beauty personified. No one who was sinful, envious, violent toward other living entities, cunning, falsely proud, lusty, or greedy could even enter that city. The people who lived there were all devoid of these faults. Bali Maharaj, who was the commander of a numberless soldiers, gathered his soldiers outside this abode of Indra and attacked it from all directions. He sounded the conch shell given him by his spiritual master, Shukracharya, thus creating a fearful situation for the women protected by Indra. Seeing Bali Maharaj's indefatigable endeavor and understanding his motive, King Indra, along with the other demigods, approached his spiritual master, Brihaspati, and spoke as follows. My lord, our old enemy Bali Maharaj now has new enthusiasm, and he has obtained such astonishing power that we think that perhaps we cannot resist his prowess. No one, anywhere, can counteract this military arrangement of Bali's. It now appears that Bali is trying to drink up the entire universe with his mouth, lick up the 10 directions with his tongue, and raise fire in every direction with his eyes. Indeed, he has arisen like the annihilating fire known as Samvartaka. Kindly inform me, what is the cause of Bali Maharaj's strength, endeavor, influence, and victory? How has he become so enthusiastic? And Indra wonders this because previously, not only was he not enthusiastic, he was so unenthusiastic that he was dead. Indra thought that he had previously taken care of this foe, and now he has come back alive and infinitely stronger than he was before. This is a problem for the demigods. Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, said, O Indra, I know the cause for your enemies becoming so powerful. The Brahmin descendants of Brigumuni, being pleased by Bali Maharaj, their disciple, endowed him with such extraordinary power. Neither you nor your men can conquer the most powerful Bali. Indeed, no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can conquer him, for he is now equipped with the supreme spiritual power, Brahma Tejas. As no one can stand before Yamaraj, no one can now stand before Bali Maharaj. This is the power of the blessings of saintly people. This is our life and soul. These blessings are the treasure of our lives. With those blessings come unimaginable prowess. Brahma Tejas, which is spiritual potency, the likes of which we could only dream and hope for. And yet, it is always available to us. All we have to do is, with faith, surrender to the instructions of wonderfully kind-hearted spiritual masters like Srila Prabhupada. Brihaspati continues, therefore, waiting until the situation of your enemies is reversed, you should all leave this heavenly planet and go elsewhere where you will not be seen. Bali Maharaj has now become extremely powerful because of the benedictions given him by the Brahmanas, but when he later insults the Brahmins, he will be vanquished, along with his friends and assistants. Shukadev Goswami continued. The demigods, being thus advised by Brihaspati for their benefit, immediately accepted his words. Assuming forms according to their desire, they left the heavenly kingdom and scattered without being observed by the demons. Amazing. If our spiritual masters wisely told us there is a time for fighting and a time for simply patiently biding our time and waiting for blessings that are assured, would we be able to be that patient? Would we be able to follow their instructions and simply go into hiding? Would we be able to put the ego aside, which would probably tell us there must be some way to fight for what's ours? Would we be able to follow the instructions of our spiritual master and have faith in the blessings that they've assured us? Victory is assured. All you have to do is follow what I'm telling you. Do nothing. Wait on the side and pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or would we be trying to find loopholes? Would we be trying to find ways in which to satisfy the ego within us that would tell us, no, I've got to fight my own battles. I've got to handle this on my own. Indra, the king of the heavens, has been told that not only he, but all of the people under his jurisdiction should go into hiding. Somehow or other, they were all able to follow the directive of their spiritual master. When the demigods had disappeared, Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochan, entered the heavenly kingdom, and from there he brought the 3 worlds under his control. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu, being very pleased with their disciple, who had conquered the entire universe, now engaged him in performing 100 Ashvamedha sacrifices. Purport. We have seen in the dispute between Maharaj Prithu and Indra that when Maharaj Prithu wanted to perform 100 Ashvamedha yagyas, Indra wanted to impede him, for it is because of such great sacrifices that Indra was made king of heaven. Here the Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu decided that although Maharaj Bali was situated on the throne of Indra, he would not be able to stay there unless he performed such sacrifices. Therefore, they advised Bali Maharaj to perform at least as many Ashvamedha yagyas as Indra. The word Ayajayan indicates that all the Brahmins induced Bali Maharaj to perform such sacrifices. This is important for us because all of these sacrifices, 100 Ashvamedha yagyas, just to perform one, takes an incredible amount of gold, and animals, and Brahmins, and people, and all of these things. And it's almost impossible to perform one. Now he's going to perform it not one time, but 100 times in order to maintain and keep the throne of Indra. Meanwhile, a young Gopa, a young cowherd boy named Gopakumar, within the pages of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is another wonderful, wonderful literature where Sanatana Goswami has literally churned all of the essence, the cream of Srimad Bhagavatam, and has condensed it into the sweetened condensed milk, which is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And there we hear of a young cowherd boy named Gopakumar, and simply by chanting a mantra that his guru has given him with faith, he becomes eligible and able to occupy the throne of Indra. He doesn't want it, but he becomes eligible to occupy the throne of Indra just by chanting a mantra. Imagine, Srila Prabhupada has given us the holy name, the Maha Mantra, which he has assured and promised us can do anything, can counteract anything, can give everything if we simply chant it with faith, if we simply follow the instructions of our spiritual master with conviction. Are we convinced? Do we have that conviction? Do we have the faith that by following the order of our spiritual master, just as Bali Maharaj has done, just as Gopakumar had done, anything and everything is available to us? Now, I don't say this to say that we should have our eyes set on the heavenly kingdom of Indra. I say this to encourage us that all the things that we think we lack, or all of the things that we think we will miss out on by praying to Krishna, by chanting the holy names, by giving our lives over to this process, we are not missing out on anything. We absolutely have everything. We have everything that we could dream of and more, all encapsulated within one Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's it. If we chant this mantra with faith, all of the knowledge, all of the wealth, all of the opulences known within all of this creation, material, spiritual, beyond, all of it is available to us. All it takes is the appropriate amount of faith within our hearts, because the holy name will still act. When Bali Maharaj performed these sacrifices, he gained a great reputation in all directions throughout the three worlds. Thus he shone in his position like the brilliant moon in the sky. And yet again, this is also available to one who gives themselves over to the process of devotional service. It is simply a byproduct. One becomes famous, you gain a great reputation, and you are shining within all of the three worlds. Because of the favor of the Brahmanas, the great soul Bali Maharaj, thinking himself very satisfied, became very opulent and prosperous and began to enjoy the kingdom. So what I really like is that he was a very piously minded person right now. He's incredibly piously minded, even though right now he has not fully surrendered himself to Krishna. He's piously minded. And pious people don't have to just kind of live a life full of struggle. In fact, we hear of Sanatan Goswami and the touchstone. There is a Brahmin who comes to Sanatan Goswami hearing that he has the greatest wealth ever. And so he asks, can you please give me that valuable, treasurable thing that I've been hearing about? He says, well, I do have a touchstone which can turn anything into the most precious gold, diamonds, whatever you desire. And so this Brahmin is thinking, oh my goodness, well, where is it? He said, oh, it's over there. And it was in a pile of garbage, basically a trash heap. This Brahmin is thinking, and he's willing to give this to me? Yeah, take it. It's fine. It's yours. And so the Brahmin, on his way home is contemplating, he must have something greater. If he's giving this to me, and if it was sitting in the trash heap, he's got to have something more valuable. And so he goes back to Sanatan Goswami. And Sanatan Goswami says, well, I can only give you that most valuable thing that I have, which is greater than the touchstone, if you are willing to toss the touchstone into the bottom of the river. So the Brahmin thinks, well, if that's what I've got to do, no problem. He tosses it. Full faith. That's the key, the full faith. And that is when Sanatan Goswami gives him the treasure of the holy name, which is what he considers to be more valuable than any touchstone, more valuable than any material substance. It is the treasure of our lives. It can grant us anything, everything. All we need is that faith and the heart with that utmost conviction that Krishna has promised me. Srila Prabhupada has promised me. My spiritual master has promised me. On the faith of those promises and on the strength of their word, we chant this mantra with all conviction, knowing that it will help us. So that was chapter 15. We hear in later chapters how now the demigods are very upset. Bali Maharaj is very happy, but all of the demigods are upset. No one else seems to be very happy about this arrangement. Um, the person who becomes the most unhappy is Aditi, the mother of all of the demigods. And when her husband, Kashyapa, who happens to be kind of the Prajapati, the progenitor, the source of both the demigods and the demons as races, he has two wives, Diti and Aditi. The Adityas, or the demigods, come from Aditi, and then the demons, which is this race of half siblings, they come from Diti. And between the two wives, there was already a rivalry. They did not like each other, and their sons did not like each other. And such an enmity grew like it was a cancerous legion that spread. They were forever enemies. My Guru Maharaj liked to say that the demigods and the demons were very, very much alike. They both have very long lifespans. They're both incredibly powerful, very, very strong, superhuman strength, superhuman abilities. They can often both be quite handsome, very beautiful looking. The difference is what they choose to do with their time. The demigods choose to use their time in serving the mission and the goals of Lord Vishnu. The demons do not. They could care less, quite often. And so we hear about how Aditi is very upset about this arrangement. Her sons have been kicked out of their homes, and she has to watch as they wander around homeless and with nothing. Kashyapa Muni, her husband, arrives home after many years of austerity, and he sees nothing looks quite the same. The house doesn't look like it's in the same kind of array, like it's in disarray. His wife looks very morose, and he begins to ask her, what's the problem? And he asks her an array of questions, and finally she says, can you just be merciful and side with my sons? Give my sons some way in which they can get their kingdom back. And so Kashyapa Muni begins to preach to her. How strong are the bonds of these familial attachments and these bodily relationships? He tries to give her this like philosophical idea, but he immediately sees that she can't hear him. And so then he changes tactics. And I always found that was a very, very smart and sensitive and caring move. He gave her philosophy and then saw that this was just not a time for philosophy. Sometimes in our preaching to different people, we have to understand when it just is not a time for philosophy. Sometimes in their grief and in going through, in the midst of the hardship, sometimes people just can't hear it. It doesn't make them any less spiritual. It doesn't make them any less godly. They're simply in a state where they just cannot emotionally handle this philosophy. It doesn't even make them any less spiritually advanced. So he changes tactics and he tells her, okay, but I can't help you. He wisely understands his own limitations. And he doesn't get egotistical about it, right? It's not like I should be able to fix and solve all your problems as your husband. He says, I honestly can't help you with this. The only person that would be able to help you is the Supreme Lord himself. And so I will tell you a way in which to gain the audience of the Supreme Person. Once you gain the audience of the Supreme Person, if you ask him, I am sure he would be willing to help you. And so he tells her a way in which to execute the Payovrata ceremony, this ritual in order to gain the Supreme Lord as her own son. And so then this brings us to chapter 17 of the 8th canto. Shukadeva Goswami continues narrating to Maharaj Parikshit, O king, after Aditi was thus advised by her husband, Kashyapa Muni, she strictly followed his instructions without laziness, and in this way performed the Payovrata ritualistic ceremony. With full, undiverted attention, Aditi thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way brought under full control her mind and senses, which resembled forceful horses. She concentrated her mind upon the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Thus she performed the ritualistic ceremony known as Payovrata. This brings about a very interesting note that I want to remind myself of. When my mind is going out of control and it resembles forceful horses, all my mind and senses are tearing me to shreds. Right? We all have those days where the mind is just simply not our friend. Here, let me serve to you on a platter all of the mistakes that we will now dissect moment by moment. And then we can go over them and over them and over them again and again and again. Usually happens about 3:30 a.m. when we're trying to sleep and then you can't sleep and then your mind says, here, let me give you all the things that we've done wrong in this life. And then forget this life. Now we know that there are other lives. And if we're suffering in this life, it must mean that it's because not only were we a horrible person in this life, but we were a horrible person in previous lives too. Now, let's pile on the guilt and all of the uncomfortable feelings. I want to remind myself that when my mind is trying to rip me to shreds, I can focus on the lotus feet of my very own Lord and somehow or other pray that he helps me bring my mind and senses, those forcible horses, under control. Aditi was able to do this with full and undiverted attention. Just the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear king, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, dressed in yellow garments and bearing a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus in his 4 hands, then appeared before Aditi. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead became visible to Aditi's eyes, Aditi was so overwhelmed by transcendental bliss that she at once stood up and then fell to the ground like a rod to offer the Lord her respectful obeisances. Aditi stood silently with folded hands, unable to offer prayers to the Lord. Because of transcendental bliss, tears filled her eyes and the hairs on her body stood on end. Because she could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, she felt ecstasy and her body trembled. Srila Prabhupada has given us, even within the 1st and 2nd cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, a surefire way to see Krishna face to face. He says we simply read these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam and we can experience seeing Krishna face to face. Imagine when our reading becomes full of conviction, full of love in the heart, full of the desire to serve, that we can experience. They are no longer words on a page. We are seeing these images within the eye of the mind and within the eyes of our heart. And we can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. All it takes is reading this wonderful literature that Srila Prabhupada so painstakingly translated, giving word for word transliterations, giving purports which are his very own ecstasies, little motivational letters to each one of us. O Maharaj Parikshit, the demigoddess Aditi, then began offering her prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a faltering voice and with great love, because that's key. She appeared as though drinking through her eyes the Supreme Lord, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, the enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, and the master and lord of the entire universe, the goddess, Aditi said. Now let's see, right? This is a goddess. It is important to note this is a celestial personality. She says, O master and enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, O infallible and most famous person, whose name, when chanted, spreads all good fortune. O original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Controller, shelter of all holy places, you are the shelter of all poor, suffering living entities, and you have appeared to diminish their suffering. Please be kind to us and spread our good fortune. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of those who observe vows and austerities, and it is he who bestows benedictions upon them. This fasting on Ekadashi, fasting till noon for Vamana, fasting on Ekadashi the rest of the day, these are vows and austerities. Our Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of those who perform all of these vows and austerities. This is our Lord and Master, and he bestows benedictions upon them. There will be benedictions for those who simply perform this Ekadashi fast. Our Lord has already promised us results even before we've begun to complete the fast. How fortunate are we that our Krishna is so kind that he lets us know that there's great things even before we've completed the task. He is worshipable for the devotee throughout the devotee's life, for he never breaks his promises. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 31, Konteya pratijani hi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. The Lord is addressed here as Achyuta, the infallible, because he takes care of his devotees. Anyone inimical to the devotees is certainly vanquished by the mercy of the Lord. The Lord is the source of the Ganges water, and therefore he is addressed here as Tirthapad, indicating that all the holy places are at his lotus feet, or that wherever he touches with his foot becomes a holy place. So wherever this Srimad Bhagavatam is within our homes, we should know to be a place of pilgrimage. New York is a place of pilgrimage. It is not simply all of these holy dhams. Yes, they are there, but now Srila Prabhupada has come and he has established tiny little holy dhams everywhere throughout this globe. Bhagavad Gita, for example, begins with the words Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. Because the Lord was present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it became a Dharma Kshetra, a place of pilgrimage. Therefore, the Pandavas, who were extremely religious, were assured of victory. Any place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays his pastimes, such as Vrindavan or Dwarka, becomes a holy place. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is pleasing to the ear, and it expands good fortune to the audience who hears it chanted. Owing to the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Aditi was fully assured that the troublesome condition created for her by the demons would now be ended. Are we sure? Are we sure that when we are chanting, the situations that we are praying for will be turned around? Do we have faith in our friend? Do we have faith in our Supreme Person who always takes care of his devotees? Or are we busy telling ourselves and convincing ourselves that we are not devotees, not worthy of our Lord's protection and benedictions? He doesn't say those people with pure intentions are worthy of the benediction. Anyone. He is the Lord of those, all those who observe vows and austerities. He is the master of all of them. That includes us. We don't have to have it perfect. Case in point, Aditi is here not simply praying for pure devotional service. She's praying for her children to get their wealth back, to get their position back, their reputation back, their opulence back, their comforts back. Now, we all know that with those comforts, the demigods are going to serve the Supreme Lord. So we know that. But here she is praying for something that seems material. This is us. So sometimes we catch ourselves praying for the material things. Oh Lord, I know I want to serve you, but in order to serve you, I'm going to need some things. So now we have the example of Aditi, praying for the things that she needs in order for her and her children to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's see if the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus condemns her. Okay, let's see. My Lord, you are the all-pervading universal form, the fully independent creator, maintainer, and destroyer of this universe. Although you engage your energy in matter, you are always situated in your original form and never fall from that position. For your knowledge is infallible and always suitable to any situation. You are never bewildered by illusion. O my Lord, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. O unlimited one, if your lordship is satisfied, one can very easily obtain a lifetime as long as that of Lord Brahma, a body either in the upper, lower, or middle planetary systems, unlimited material opulence, religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses, full transcendental knowledge, and the 8 yogic perfections. What to speak of such petty achievements as conquering one's rivals? Shukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, best of the Bharat dynasty, when the lotus-eyed Lord, the supersoul of all living entities, was thus worshipped by Aditi, he replied as follows. Let's see if he says to her, I can't grant you all of that. You didn't ask for pure devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the demigods, I have already understood your long cherished desires for the welfare of your sons, who have been deprived of all opulences and driven from their residence by their enemies. O Devi, O Goddess, I can understand that you want to regain your sons and be together with them to worship me, after defeating the enemies in battle and retrieving your abode in opulences. You want to see the wives of the demons lamenting for the death of their husbands, when those demons, the enemies of your sons, are killed in battle by the demigods of whom Indra is the chief. Now, doesn't that seem like a very materially minded desire? Like, not only do I want to see the things returned, but I need to see the other people suffer. I need to know that the comeuppance is occurring. So sometimes if we know we have this desire within our hearts, what's amazing is that Krishna understands that it is there. And he understands that we need some help navigating through those desires. But he's not penalizing her for it. He's saying, I already understood the long cherished desires that were there in your heart. He knows the desires even before we pray to them, pray for them, pray about them, pray on them. And he's not penalizing us for it. He's not condemning us for it. He's not leaving us for it. Krishna already understands, which just gives us even more reason to open our hearts and simply explain to Krishna what is there, to be honest with Krishna about what's in our hearts, to be vulnerable with him and open up about those desires that are there. You want your sons to regain their lost reputation and opulence and live again on their heavenly planet as usual. O Mother of the demigods, in my opinion, almost all of the chiefs of the demons are now unconquerable, for they are being protected by the Brahmanas, whom the Supreme Lord always favors. I like how he's talking about himself in the third person. Thus, the use of power against them now will not at all be a source of happiness. Yet, because I have been satisfied by the activities of your vow, O Goddess Aditi, I must find some means to favor you, for worship of me never goes in vain, but certainly gives the desired result according to what one deserves. Worship of Krishna never, ever goes in vain. Krishna never leaves us hanging. Krishna absolutely fulfills all desires and finds a way to do it in which all parties involved are pleased. This is Krishna. This is our unlimited person. This is who we are praying to day in, day out when we are chanting the Mahamantra. This is the Krishna that we need. Oh Lord, I don't know how to satisfy everyone, but you know how to make a situation where in which everyone is pleased, everyone is satisfied, and all desires are fulfilled. He knows a way in which to make Aditi happy by taking back the property of the demigods. But he knows how to simultaneously bless Bali Maharaj so that Bali Maharaj doesn't actually lose out on anything. How is this possible? Because this is Krishna. This is the same Krishna who's working in our lives. We should remember that this is the Krishna when we find ourselves in difficulty and we don't see how it could possibly all work out. In fact, it would be impossible for it to all work out. Luckily, we worship a supreme person who specializes in making the impossible happen. For those who worship him, for those who simply open up their hearts and become vulnerable, who simply pray to him with all they've got. I must find some means to favor you, for worship of me never goes in vain. This is Krishna's promise to all of us. I must find some means to favor you. I have to. You've prayed to me. Now I'm indebted. How is it that Krishna can become indebted to somebody because they've prayed to him? Doesn't it seem like we should be more indebted? We're asking for something, begging for something, but our Krishna becomes more indebted. This is our magnanimous friend, well-wisher, confidant, supreme person. This gives our hearts and minds the ammunition when the mind comes back and gives us a clap back that, oh, this worshiping Krishna is way too difficult. Why do we stick with this? Why are we doing all of this? Our hearts can answer, this is why. Because worship of Krishna never goes in vain. I am sure, and I have been assured, that Krishna absolutely will listen to my prayers. Krishna continues, you have prayed to me and properly worshipped me by performing the great Payovrat ceremony for the sake of protecting your sons. Because of Kashyapa Muni's austerities, I shall agree to become your son and thus protect your other sons. Always thinking of me as being situated within the body of your husband, Kashyapa, go worship your husband who has been purified by his austerity. O lady, even if someone inquires, you should not disclose this fact to anyone. That which is very confidential is successful if kept secret. So sometimes we see that our blessings, we don't talk about them. But luckily, it seems as though this blessing was told probably after it came to pass. And I say luckily because we have this story now in Srimad Bhagavatam. Somebody told somebody who told somebody else. And now Shukadeva Goswami heard it and is telling Parikshit Maharaj. And luckily, he was speaking it in a gathering of so many other people who now could tell us. So there is a time to keep those prayers and those blessings close to the vest and not disclose them. But there's also a time to boldly testify and say, look what Krishna has done for me. Srila Prabhupada would say, look at the mercy of my Guru Maharaj and look at the mercy of Krishna. All of this that you are saying, it's not me. He was so eager to give that glory to Krishna and Guru Maharaj. Shukadeva Goswami said, after speaking in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead disappeared from that very spot. Aditi, having received the extremely valuable benediction that the Lord would appear as her son, considered herself very successful, and with great devotion, she approached her husband. And then it continues as how the Lord began to appear from the union of Kashyapa Muni and Aditi. And then Lord Brahma, having seen that the Supreme Lord is appearing, begins to also offer prayers. But this pastime from beginning to end has so many impossible things in it. There are so many purports later on, which maybe we'll speak about in the next Ekadashi, where Srila Prabhupada speaks as though, and he says, if one gives everything to the Supreme Person, they are never the loser. they only gain everything. How is it that you could have 10 apples and Krishna could ask for all 10 apples, and you give 10 apples and somehow you then have 25 apples? That is not math, and yet that is Krishna. This is our inconceivable Lord who is giving us everything, even as we surrender it to him. It's already his. It's already his. All we have to do is give up that willingness to like hold on to it and call ourselves the controller. When we give up that need to be the controller, to be the proprietor, and we start understanding things just truthfully, that this is not mine, this is Krishna's, magic happens. And Krishna gives us everything that was within the heart that we spoke about, everything that was within the heart that we did not speak about, and everything that we couldn't have even dreamt of asking for. Krishna fulfills all desires. So thank you for allowing me to be with you and observe this wonderful austerity and this vow of observing Ekadashi in order to please the master of all those who observe any vows and austerities, to somehow or other gain benedictions the likes of which I have not even begun to dream about. But I'll let you know when they happen. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Achyuta Gopi. Beautiful class. Very hope given as always. I have a quick question. We're way over time, but it's a burning question. I have to ask it. What's the difference between having faith in Krishna fulfilling our desires, answering our prayers, and treating Krishna as our order supplier, like Santa Claus? Krishna, make my landlord not raise my rent. And if he does, it's your fault, Krishna. What's the difference between those two mindsets?
I mean, if we were really thinking, if the landlord raises my rent, then Krishna, it is your fault, and we understand that Krishna always has our best interest for us, then it's like, okay, well, Krishna, if the landlord raises my rent, then I'm going to have faith that just like you gave Bali Maharaj all of the equipment that he needed to conquer the heavens, then all of the resources should be coming any minute now. And so, we have to carry the faith through. I think the difference is we need that same energy, keep the same energy when we're praying, to then have faith that Krishna is going to carry it through. There's a point in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Srila Prabhupada says that we should be careful about approaching Krishna as an order supplier. And then he says, but if anyone has any material desires even, he had better approach Krishna, our dearmost friend, for them. So I feel like, the difference is having faith is bring that same energy. Krishna, please don't let my landlord raise the rent. Oh, Krishna, please give me this new car so that I can better facilitate my service to you. But if you don't give me this new car, and if the landlord does raise the rent, then I'm also going to have faith that Krishna is going to give me the facility to serve him. The question is, do I trust Krishna? Whether he answers the way I think he should answer, or the way he answers the way he thinks he should answer. Because Aditi asked for one thing, give him back all the wealth. And he says, well, we can't defeat Bali like this. We can't go to war. What I can do is I can become your son. Now she had not, she's like, I didn't ask for that. I didn't know that this was going to be how it's going to happen. And Indra didn't think that was how it was going to happen either. Indra complains a little bit within the pages of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He says, I asked the Lord for help. My kingdom was taken away. I needed assistance. He became my younger brother. And then instead of fighting for my honor like a real warrior, he goes and begs charity from my enemy. And then after he begs charity from my enemy, he chastises me, saying, oh, Bali Maharaj, I'll give you a kingdom better than the kingdom of Indra. And if any of these demigods even think about being envious of you, I will destroy them all. What kind of behavior is this? He comes and goes as he pleases. So Indra was thinking he's going to get the kingdom back in a fighting spirit that I can be proud of. And instead, he gets charity. There you go, as a favor. So sometimes when we think Krishna is not answering our prayer to our satisfaction, we have to have that faith is, do I trust Krishna? Krishna, I trust you. In happiness, Krishna, I trust you. In distress, Gaur Govinda Maharaj has said that faith means I trust Krishna.
Thank you, Achyuta Gopi. Very satisfying answer. Next month, I'll go to my landlord, and instead of paying my rent, I'll tell him, I can become your son.
that might come with a whole host of that. Let me know how that turns out.
I will. Okay, Achyuta Gopi Devi, Dasi Prabhu Ki Jai, Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Krishna answering our prayers Ki Jai, trust in Krishna Ki Jai. Have a blissful Ekadashi. Bhakti Devi is having a blissful Ekadashi already. We can tell by her smile. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. See you all again tomorrow. It's another day. Krishna consciousness is every day. Krishna is answering our prayers every day, every time. Yes. Achyuta Gopi Devi, Hare Krishna. Thanks everyone.